Listen, before we begin, I have to put this up here right in front so that there's no misunderstanding. Nothing presented in this recorded recovery seminar is intended to be, listen, nor does it constitute diagnosis of anything of any kind or medical anything of any kind. I don't do that. Others do that. What I do is present some things from another way of looking at them to see if they can be of some help. I put another spin, another angle outside the box for those who struggle. So I'm reaching out. I'm reaching out to help them. See if in this that I presented to those in attendance on that day and how I presented it to them, you too can find some new and helpful understanding. This is an outside-the-box, another approach recovery seminar for those alcoholics and addicts who struggle with their sobriety, many of whom have relapsed again, and yes, yet again. See if it helps you. Here's the seminar. Speaking this evening before a group of alcoholics and addicts, maybe some people, men and women, most of whom have been in and out of AA and back in and out of AA and NA. Many in rehabs. How many in more than one rehab? Let me see hands. Look at this. And how many people here have been in jail over this use? Whoa. All right, I'm speaking here tonight, and they didn't get it. They're here because they're not connecting. It's not. They wouldn't be back in rehab again if they got it, and there's nothing wrong, and I want to make this clear for anybody listening here, whether you're in Nebraska, California, Florida, Kentucky, wherever it is, that there's nothing wrong with anything heard in rehab or anything you've heard in AA or NA. But sometimes people need something a little more in addition to what they know and what they've heard. So that's what this is about. It's not to discredit anything that anyone heard. And the name of the seminar tonight is called The Process of Becoming. Now let me explain what this means. Life doesn't stay the same. Life is always moving. See, when it stays the same, that's called static. And when it's in flux and moving, that's called dynamic. So life is dynamic. And we're always in a state of change. The way we're made, you and I, and the whole creation, what I saw, I learned, what I learned, I did, and what I did, I became. So as we grow up in the family unit, as we grow up at home, as we grow up in the neighborhood, we are under the power of influence of our environment. Our home environment, under the power of influence of the neighborhood, and it shapes and molds us. It molds our values. It molds our ways and what we should do, how we respond to things. So, for example, the power of influence. If you are not a criminal and you begin to hang out with criminals, what they are in time will begin to penetrate your behavior. You will begin to think what they do is okay, the power of influence. And you become and will be becoming, just listen, what you hang out with, what you are around. In life, when you're an addict, when you're an alcoholic, you have been around people who use alcohol and drugs, and or, just listen, important, and the behaviors that go with the alcoholic and drug culture. And those behaviors are not good. They're not, there's nothing about those behaviors that deals with honesty and integrity and human decency. That's not part of the alcoholic and drug culture. So that's what and who you become. And then people say, well, I want to change. I want to get into the fellowship. I want to go to rehab. I want to change. Well, the bottom line is that you play the major role in determining who you become. And how you play the major role in determining who you become depends on the power of influence that you are around. Who are you hanging with? Where are you walking? Who are your friends? And so you have to choose the people you hang around with. That power, listen now, that power of influence shapes your life. And here's how that happens. Because you begin to behave like the power of influence you're under. Behavior is a powerful force. Behavior is a very powerful force. Behavior creates the conditions and circumstances of your life. How you behave creates conditions. How you behave plays a major role in forming your destiny. Because here was the guy who hung around with the people he thought he admired them. They had it together, man. They had it together. Only they were into things they shouldn't have been into. And man, he liked them. Those were the guys, man. They had all the good-looking girls. And his behavior became like theirs. That was his power of influence. And it created and formed his destiny. Because he said, I got arrested. I said, you didn't get arrested, son. You created the arrest by your behavior. You don't get arrested. You create the arrest by your behavior. Yeah. You don't catch a felony. You create a felony by your behavior. You make it happen. You make it happen because you were under a power of influence where that's what the people do. What I saw, I learned. What I learned, I did. What I did, I became. And you become what you're around. You become what the power of influence that you're around is. That's the process of becoming. We're always becoming. We're always changing. Who you hanging with? Who you talking to? What kind of thoughts they're going on in your head as a result of who you're hanging with? That will shape your life. Yeah. So the process of becoming means that you need to hang with and be under a, listen, and power of influence where the people are and behave like you would like to become. And over a period of time, just like osmosis, if you stay around those people, your values over time will become what those people's values are. So if they're people that have human decency and you hang around with them, then you will begin to acquire a sense of human decency. But if they are people who don't have human decency and they're part of a culture that doesn't know that, you're going to become what they are. Depends on where you're walking. Depends on who you're hanging with. Because I tell you what, when you hang with them, after you leave them, you're still hanging out with them. You're hanging out with them in your head. How many can understand that? Oh, yeah. Because the cop spot isn't on the corner. The cop spot's in your head. That's where you cop first. That's where you commit the crime first. In your head. In the before zone. There's a seminar on that, the before zone. Very powerful. Very powerful. So the process of becoming plays a major, major role in our lives. All of our lives. And I'm talking tonight before a group of people who are alcoholics and addicts. This is applicable to people on Main Street, USA. So it's not limited only to the alcoholic and the addict. But who are you becoming and who are you hanging with? So here was a young girl. She was an alcoholic and an addict. And she said, well, she wanted to straighten out. And so she got into the fellowships. and she did well. Now, she had been married to a guy who was a user and a dealer, and she had a child by him. And she got away from that as she got into fellowships, and she divorced him, and then she had a child by another guy that she met. She knew process of becoming and how your behavior, who you hang out with, listen careful to the words, who you hang out with can play a role in forming your destiny. Yeah. So it was a hot summer night. She was on the street corner. She had the one little kid in a stroller. She had the other one by the hand. And the former husband, he was a drug dealer, came by. Hot summer night. She stood there talking to him. He and his friend. She should have known better. Okay? She had a thing in her called, I want to do what I want to do, and I want to talk to him, and nobody's going to stop me from talking to him, because when I want to do what I want to do, I want to do. So they talked to her for a little while, and he said, hey, my friend and I are going over there to the deli. We're going to get a beer and a pack of cigarettes. You want a beer? She said, no, I don't want a beer. She said, I'm in the fellowship. Power of becoming, power of influence. Stay with me. They went to the delicatessen. There was an altercation. They shot and killed the deli clerk. They said she was the lookout with the kids. She went to jail. Power of influence, who you're hanging with. What I saw, I learned. What I learned, I did. What I did, I became. This is for your life. I'm not telling you what the fellowships say. They will tell you what they say. I'm telling you some things here. Wherever you're listening, again, out there somewhere, California, I don't know, Kentucky, Tennessee. This is what they don't say, they're not supposed to, and I'm showing you something to create an awareness. It's all about awareness. When you are aware of this, when you heard this, and if this sinks in, you say, listen, he said that the power of influence begins to form my nature. My values are formed by the power of influence. So if you want your values and who you are to improve, you have to get into and under a power of influence where people are what you would like to be. The process of becoming, you play the major role in determining who it is you want to become. That's pretty simple. So what I understood was I came from a home where I was told that I was no good. I was something wrong with me from the time I was a child. That was the power of influence I was under. It played a major role in my life. Because I'll tell you what, when you think you're nobody and you're nothing, look at you, hey, you're just like your old man, you'll never amount to anything. What the hell is wrong with you? You hear that stuff? And that's who you become. How do you become that? Because that's the power of influence you were under. But when I got out of there and I started to talk to some people, and I found out that I had attributes, and I had some things about myself that were worthwhile, I found there was another power of influence. This is driven home in a seminar called Changing the Image in the Mirror. Mirror, mirror on the wall. The mirror isn't there at all. The no good nothing that I see in the mirror, he or she's in me. And I had to take that out of me. It got in me by the things they said. And I had to get under another power of influence till one day I could say, mirror, mirror on the wall, I can be somebody after all. And I want to tell you, I got out from under the power of influence with the put-downs, with the characterizations that were destructive, and the same thing with you. You play the major role in determining who you become. And you do that by shifting the environment that you're under into an environment that builds you up and shows you your strong points and shows you that you are worth something and that you have value. And those environments are there. But if you stay in the culture of the drug world, the alcoholic and drug world, nothing good comes from that. Only words, you're no good, you'll never amount to anything. Look at the things that are said. Let me open it up here. You ever hear this, you little whore? You didn't amount to anything. You're a piece of crap. What is wrong with you? You're an embarrassment. You're a disappointment. How many of you have heard that? You let us down. Those words are planted inside of a human being. They grow just like seeds grow. What do they produce? They produce your self-image. And we live based on our self-image. We live based on that image that we have of ourselves in the mirror. And if you want to become something better and something more, you have to get into and under a power of influence that sees something more in you. And they begin to change the image that you have of yourself. The process of becoming. You play the major role in determining who you become. And the way that happens, and we'll tell you again, is what power of influence are you under? You can get up and get on your feet, get up and get off your ass, and find a power of influence to hang under that is better than the one you were under that gave you what you are. You hang on the street, your friends uses that head, you're going to become that. That behavior of using, listen to me son, that's going to play a role in your destiny. When you catch a felony, you don't catch a felony, you create a felony. Look at what you're becoming. Look at what that role that plays. What power of influence were you under? I suggest you take this to heart. I suggest you think about it. If you're listening to this on CD, listen again and take it to heart. And think about what other power of influence you can get under, other than the one that puts you down and other than the one that's part of the alcoholic and drug culture. This making sense to anybody here? Let me see some hands. Let me see some hands. The power of influence that you're under, I'm going to tell you that again, plays a major role in forming your destiny. Major role in forming your destiny. What I saw, I learned. What I learned, I did. What I did, I became. And you become what you're around. The process of becoming, the power of influence that you are around, will play a major role in forming your destiny. I suggest you think about this. Again, listen again. Yeah. Because what I saw, I learned. What I learned, I did. And what I did, I became. And what I became produced this. Has this been helpful to you? Hey, if you found this outside-the-box recovery seminar that I just presented helpful to you, then share it. Share it with friends on Facebook and on Twitter and on your other social media accounts. You may help someone else's recovery by doing that. Well, that's the seminar. It's important, however, to understand that it's not offered as a replacement for your participation in the treatment and self-help programs that are available. It's offered to you for the purpose of opening new understanding and to encourage you to get into the appropriate self-help and treatment programs that are available for your life. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you around. I'll see you around.